Good afternoon. How's everyone doing? I don't know if you're sitting here because you're tired or because you really want to know about attending this session on release management. So anyway, either way, you are welcome. So today we'll talk about reinventing release management, right? At Flowsome, we think Salesforce is a very different platform. It's compared to if you look at all the other traditional platforms like Java, C, Microsoft. Salesforce is a very different platform. First of all the code in Salesforce is very declarative, right? That makes it, if you use a version control system like merging all the code and all that, it's very complicated. So what we wanted to do was build a solution which is completely aligned with the Salesforce platform. That's why you can integrate Flowsome, a solution like Flowsome, with other technologies like Bitbucket and GitHub and other solutions, but we have reinvented everything from the ground up. So I thought instead of talking about theory, I'm going to show you the complete end-to-end flow in action. And I'll complete the entire flow in probably the next 15 minutes. Sounds good? Yeah? So today what we will do is we'll take a look at the high-level flow of Flowsome. Um, and this is So essentially what we'll do is we'll look at multiple development sandboxes. We'll pull the changes into branches, into Flowsome. We'll merge the code between various developers and then deploy the code automatically, right? And along the way, we will do testing and we'll do merging of all the code, right? So now Flowsome is a solution which is completely built on the Salesforce platform, right? If you look at, I was working within Salesforce and I was helping customers evaluate the security of the Salesforce platform. And customers would take 6 to 8 months in evaluating the security of the Salesforce platform because they wouldn't trust. So I used to work with banks, defense organizations, and they wanted to make sure that Salesforce is not leaking out any data. However, what we see is if you look at most solutions in the space, they have access to the customer's data, right? Whereas in Flowsome, we pay top-notch attention to the security aspects. That's why the entire solution is created on the Salesforce platform. And it's created in such a way such that no one has from Flowsome will have access to customers' data. So this is the main Flowsome solution which is installed, right? And it completely runs on the Salesforce platform. So under the orgs tab, you can see all the various orgs which are registered. So all the dev orgs you have, test boxes you have, production orgs. And then if I drill down into one of the orgs, you can see the complete 360-degree view of that org. You can see all the changes which are deployed to that org, who has access to that org to deploy changes into that, right? So under the snapshots, you can pull changes from the development sandbox into Flowsome. Or under the latest components, Flowsome will automatically scan your development sandboxes every so often, and will pull those changes from the development sandboxes into Flowsome, right? So let's say if you want to create a change, you want to pull all the changes that you have done in your development sandbox, you can create a snapshot. And let's say if I'm working on a feature, let's say called feature 1, you can pull all the changes, let's say done in the last 1 day. You can specify component types, what component types you want to pull in, whether it's custom objects, Apex triggers, all those changes could be pulled in. You can specify the name of the component or who pulled in those changes. Once you have all those changes within a snapshot, you can commit all those changes to a branch within Flowsome. So this is a snapshot we just created in the last 1 day. It pulled in a total of 22 components. And you can see the list of all those components here. So this is also used by customers to back up all the metadata and the code from the production org into Flowsome. So there was a Salesforce outage a couple of weeks back. Many of our customers who were using this for backups, they had all the profiles backed up from the production org into Flowsome. And from here, they just deployed all those changes, and they were able to restore it very quickly. So this is where you can get all the changes from your many of the orgs, development sandboxes, production org into Flowsome, right? Once you have those changes, you can commit the changes that you want. So in this case, we have created a total of 20 changes in the development sandbox. I can select the components that I want, and I can commit them to a branch within Flowsome, right? So here within this branch, these were the changes that were committed by me. And again, you can see all the components were changed. So with Flowsome, we obviously support 100% of the component types, lightning bundles, aura definition bundles, static resources, all the component types by Salesforce are supported by Flowsome. As soon as you commit these components to a specific branch, Flowsome can automatically start the code analysis. So if you have integration with any kind of code analysis tool, we can run the code scan for you, and we can show the results as part of the code scan. Once those code scan results are complete, you can create a pull request for your team members to review the code and see what the status is of the pull request. So if I want to invite my team members, I can review all the code. I can say review my changes, pull all the changes from Flowsome, and I can invite my team members to review all the changes, right? What this is going to do is it's going to send a notification to the rest of the team members. They can log in into Flowsome, and they can see what are the changes which are done by me. So the view for them, it's going to look something like this. So when the notification came to me, so essentially what you do see is a side-by-side view of all the changes, right? I'm going to switch back here. So essentially, it's going to show a side-by-side view of all the changes. The person who is reviewing the changes, they can put line comments at each of the line members. Then they can either approve the changes or they can reject the changes, right? If the changes are approved, this person who committed this particular feature, they can move the changes forward, right? Now my code has gone through a static code analysis review. It has been reviewed by all the team members. I can merge my code into the next level of the branch. So I can select all the changes here, and I'm merging my feature branch changes, my user story, into a release branch. So I can select my release branch where the changes will be merged. And here, Flowsome says there are a bunch of conflicts which are going to happen here, right? So you can see a side-by-side analysis. There are conflicts in the custom object. There are conflicts in the Aura bundle and Apex class. So here, Flowsome says there are a total of 3 different conflicts. And if I want to jump on the first conflict, you can see the same field is on both the sides, but the type of the field has been changed by 2 different developers, right? If I want to merge the changes, I can just click on this arrow and reconcile the changes between multiple developers. Similarly, on the right-hand side, this person has added a field for total amount. And if I want to merge the change, all I have to do is merge the changes on this side. So this is a big differentiator between Flowsome and if you use other standard version control systems. Let's say if you use something like GitHub or Bitbucket, and if you have a custom object where you have, let's say field A, B, and C, and then someone commits the same XML file, the same objects, the same fields A, B, and C, but if they are in different order, GitHub or Bitbucket will show you a lot of changes. The reason is because the way Git technology is built, it is built to do a line-by-line conflict detection. It doesn't do an XML node detection. What we do within Flowsome is, depending on how the object is created, we compare the entire XML node. So irrespective of how the nodes are ordered and how the XML file is created by Salesforce, we can sort the file, and we make sure that developers are spending much less time in doing code merges within the Flowsome solution. This is one of the biggest problems that you would see with a lot of other solutions. We have recently a customer in a large government agency. There were 120 developers, and they were tired of using a standard Git-based technology. And this is where they switched from other technologies into Flowsome because they wanted to spend much time in just doing merges. This was one of the biggest problems that they had. So after the merges are done, if I just click on save, you can see we have the changed files here. So you can merge the changes between multiple XML files. Similarly, we can do merge conflicts for Aura bundles, Lightning Web Components. So if you click on an Aura bundle, here Flowsome will automatically unzip the file for you. It'll show you that out of 9 components in this case, 6 components are same and 3 are different. You can resolve the conflict for those 3 components, and when you click resolve those conflicts, when you click on apply changes, Flowsome will automatically create the zip file for you and move it to the next stage. Right? Similarly, we can do for Apex classes. And the heart of it is we use different mechanisms for resolving different kinds of conflict merges. So for the way we do for Apex classes and Apex triggers is much different than the way we do for profiles, which is much different than the way we do for aura bundles. We have different logic for different component types. Once those conflict is merged, all the changes will be available in the release branch, right? So in this release branch, we have the changes from multiple developers where we were able to merge the changes. Now, if we had automatically pipelines configured, let's say if I had this code level pipeline configured, Flowsome would have automatically deployed those changes to the QA org and then to the stage org, right? In this case, we don't have anything, so whenever changes are merged, those changes were not deployed, but if this pipeline would have been selected, it would have automatically deployed those changes to those orgs. If we had the regression testing integrated, Flowsome can automatically kick off the regression testing and show all the test classes, the output of those test cases within Flowsome. Right? So you get all the solution right within one user interface. You can see the exact status of your deployments, how your deployments are happening. If you want to do a manual deployment, you can easily do a manual deployment as well. So from this release branch, I can click on just add to deployment, and I can just give a name of the deployment, choose the components that I want, and my deployment will be ready. So very quickly, you can create a deployment. From here, you can obviously do all the standard functions. You can validate changes. You can deploy changes. You can deploy any kinds of components, profile options, permission sets. We have multiple ways in which you can deploy profile options. Some patterns work for some customers, and other patterns work for other customers. You can schedule deployment. And you can also check if you're going to overwrite any changes before you do a deployment. So if I want to check if I'm going to overwrite any changes, I can just click on impact analysis. I can pick the org where I'm going to deploy the changes. So let's say if I'm going to deploy the changes on this org, and Flowsome will do a side-by-side difference between where you're deploying the changes and the components that you're deploying. And here it will show you that these components are different. They exist in the target org, but they are different. Similarly, it will show you at the very bottom, it's saying the following component will not be merged. So this is where you can say it's because the component which is in my deployment and in the target org is exactly same, right? If I want to see what exact change it's going to do in the target org, I can just click on any one of the components, and you can see what is going to happen. So again, on the left-hand side, you can see the component which is in my deployment, and on the right-hand side, you can see the component which is in my target org. If I scroll down, you can see there's a method in the target org which is going to be lost if I do my deployment. So if I want to save that method, I can just pull that code from that target org into my deployment. I have that method now. If I save this file and then I make the deployment, that code will not be lost. Right? So essentially, Flowsome has all the capabilities built within the native user interface. It's very easy to use. The training time for most admins is pretty less. If they know how to use Salesforce, they can use Flowsome very easily. There are a whole bunch of different options as well. You can compare different orgs. So you can compare your test org with your production org very quickly. And also you can compare profile options. So you can take profile X in org 1 with profile Y in org 2 and compare them very quickly. So now what we'll do is we'll switch to a solution for migrating data. Typically, customers have a lot of different managed packages like Encino, Velocity, Aptus, and Salesforce CPQ. All these packages, they create a lot of configurations in your test orgs. And to move it into your another org, it's really painful because of the relationship between those various objects. So Flowsome has created a solution where you can very quickly move the entire data hierarchy from one org into another org. So let's say, essentially the purpose of the solution is to migrate, convert every development sandbox into a partial data sandbox. You can choose the objects for which you want to move the data. So let's say you select accounts, contacts, opportunities, whatever objects you have, or they could be, Encino packages, Encino objects, or velocity objects. And with one single click, you can migrate all the objects, the data for all those objects from your production into your development sandboxes. You can do the reverse as well. You can move the data from your development sandboxes back into test sandboxes or to your production org. So under sequences, essentially what we create is, at Flowsome, we create essentially a template of all the things that you want to move. Can you see from there, or it's too small? So under Flowsome, you can create a template of all the objects you want to migrate. So these are the various objects for which you want to migrate the data, right? Flowsome can also help you create it can help you create this sequence based on your application model. So here you can see I have selected the various objects, accounts, opportunities, price book entries, and so on and so forth. And here what we are doing right now is reading your application data model. So let's say I have these objects that I want to migrate. If I want to add one more object, I can click on child objects, and on right hand side you can see I want to migrate these objects, and on the objects which are not in the sequence are on the left hand side. So if I want to migrate the assets object, the assets object was inserted just before the cases object, because asset is a parent of cases, right? You can create cases for different kinds of assets. Similarly, if I want to include all the parent objects for assets, I can choose this. So product is a parent of assets. So this object is not in the sequence. It can move add in the sequence as well, right? So very quickly, it can help you create your entire pattern of the various objects that you want. And for each of the objects, you can select which fields you want to move and also which records you want to move. So let's say for this particular accounts object, I have selected these fields, but if I want to move more fields, I can move these fields as well. If I want to obfuscate the information, let's say if you have any kind of PII data in your source org and you don't want to be transferred in the development sandbox, if you just double click on it, we will mask that information and obfuscate that information as it moves into the target org. At the lower section, you can select which records you want to move. So either you can enter the business criteria, or you can say that you want to select only a maximum of 100 objects, 100 records. So essentially, it gives you full control of the data that you want to move from the production org into the source org, right? Once you have created the sequence, and when you want to migrate it, you can test it on how many records it's going to pull up at each level. So if you click on view record count, very quickly it will tell you of how many records it will pull up at each level. So right now it's doing a quick dry run. And you can see that the whole sequence, based on the criteria we have entered, is going to pull up 6 records which match that criteria. And the space taken by that will be 12 kilobytes in the destination org. So essentially, it's a complete end-to-end DevOps tool. You can automate the entire release management process with Flowsome, including migration of data. A lot of customers actually use Flowsome for mainly compliance purposes when they want to increase the tracking and accountability for the various team members, and they have to show it to the auditors that all the changes were approved before they made into production. So with that, we conclude the demo. I'll be happy to hear and answering your questions, but if you have any questions, I can take them here as well.